Hey guys, this is Julian with SaltScom. We're out here doing another video with General Aviation with my friend Bob here. Bob he's been an airline pilot for how long, Bob? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Going on 24 years. I've been flying for 37 years though. Started when I was a teenager.
And you're just getting back into general aviation.
I'm just getting back into it. I wanted to dip my toe in, started with a Cherokee, and I liked it so much I traded it in on a 1979 Piper Navajo Panther.
So we're down in Houston, which is really the worst kind of environment as far as corrosion goes. There's very humid air, a lot of salt in the air. Most of the airports you see are on a coastal environment, which makes this one of our biggest problems. Bob, you're on the outside, you're actually covered here, but you're not actually in a hangar, right?
Yeah, the expense, I was faced with either paying for an expensive hangar or paying for a large T cover, and so I went ahead and went for the T cover, and I do have concern with that. Sometimes you can actually smell the Gulf air at night when it comes in, so you know that there's salt and a lot of moisture in the air here in Houston.
And even if you're in a hangared environment, unless it's a air-conditioned, controlled environment, you're still dealing with this, and when you're flying out over the coast, making landings, we're dealing with the salt problem that we have, right?
A lot of humidity. I've actually gotten to the airplane before in the morning and there's actually moisture on it, condensation on the airplane. And so it's definitely a concern. And when you've got an airplane which is, you know, all metal, especially with the propellers, I have a lot of concern with that.
So one of the biggest things you do to help with your corrosion resistance is frequent washing. To keep the salt off, but if you just use water to spray your plane down, you're not really getting rid of the salt. You're just putting it in a liquid form, it moves it around, it'll get in where the two metals come together, and it'll do a lot of corrosive effects. So by using SaltScom, we're actually knocking the salt and the chlorides off of your plane. It actually stops it from forming in the first place and is a much better place to prevent corrosion on your aircraft. Once your corrosion gets started, it's very hard to keep up with, and it's naturally, every aircraft is going to corrode over time. It's just a matter of how we can prevent that. All right, tell us a little bit about your plane, Bob.
Well, this airplane has the Panther conversion, which means they put a four-bladed prop on it, and this is one of my biggest concerns. The metal, a propeller, you know, flying through the air over time will wear off the paint on it, leaving the metal completely exposed. And so I am a little concerned. This propeller alone, just this side, to replace it would be about $24,000. So I have a lot of financial incentive to take care of the propeller itself. And obviously a lot of other metal parts on the airplane where two different kinds of metal meet each other, there's always the opportunity for corrosion there. But the propellers is one of my immediate concerns.
Right, and there's certain parts, like for example a Bonanza we were shooting last week. Bonanza are magnesium on the rotorvators, and you cannot get those parts. So if you do get the corrosion in some of these parts, it's really hard to find. You got to find a aircraft that has had an accident or something along those lines to actually kind of poach the parts off of for your aircraft.
That's a good point. You mentioned brand new airplane. Well, it's new to me, but it's actually a 1979, and they are not making this airplane anymore, but it was such a popular design. Many general aviation airplanes have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. You see them and they're worth a lot of money, and so people really want to take care of them and make sure they stay in tip-top shape.
That's for sure. Corrosion is the one thing that can make your aircraft unworthy in a pretty short period of time, especially in the areas of aluminum, wing spars, things of that nature. One of the spots we really worry about with corrosion for us is in our wheel well area, especially aircraft that actually suck the wheel up into the fuselage. The salts and stuff, Bob, get pulled up in there into that environment, and it's easy for them to get trapped up in there. It's kind of a normal place. So with SaltScom, we can spray all of these areas. We can get it up into the wheel well and put a protective coating and knock all the salt out of here. Even if you're not in Houston, you're landing up north, when they start treating the runways in the wintertime and things of that nature, these are very caustic materials that are getting sprayed up in here. I know in the airlines, when we make a landing in an icy environment, we leave our flaps down until we can get up and make sure there's no contaminants or any grit up in there, and we can get those cleaned out before we do our next flight. Same thing on the general aviation. You agree with that, Bob?
Absolutely. Well, with an airplane, you're flying through the air, you're driving that rain and moisture into the airplane. There's just no way to avoid it. I fly through light rain all the time, and it really drives moisture into hard to reach places, and so.
Yeah, and when it gets sucked up, it gets trapped up in there.
Absolutely.
This is one of the most difficult spots to keep corrosion free. One of the spots we have to be very careful for in general aviation is our leading edge devices, right? So it's easy to get pitting, gravel, things of that nature, nicking your paint. What's nice about your plane, you got a lot of protection with your boots, right, Bob?
Yes, I do get a lot of protection with it. Yeah.
Right, up on the front and on your elevator. But you can see right in behind here, we're having a little pitting, where a little paint, we're seeing some aluminum. Aluminum is one of the most difficult things when it comes to corrosion. Surface etch corrosion or etching corrosion. Once that is exposed, it doesn't look like rust, so it doesn't look like it's corroding. It'll look like a little opaque, maybe a little milky, maybe a little white powder on it. But once you see it, that corrosion, we're really way past the part where we can help it. So these are some of the problems and the reasons we need to be washing very consistently with salts gone, where we can knock the chlorides, knock the salt out of some of this etching, which is just normal in the airplane. Every airplane is going to corrode. It is going to have just a natural progression. It's a matter of washing it regularly, keeping the salt and chlorides out of it, and just for the life of your airplane, a much more extended period on that. Okay guys, you know, our flight control is the most important part of our aircraft. It's easy to get crevice corrosion in some of these places, and Bob, we were just talking about, you got the flaps down, you're shooting an approach on a coastal environment, you get a little water that gets down into here, don't you?
Well, I flew an instrument approach not too long ago in this very airplane right into West Houston, and when you've got the flaps out, when you're flying through the rain with the gear down, it sure does drive water into a lot of hard to reach places in the airplane.
Right, and if you have a lot of salt and stuff that's already in here through the humidity and the environment we're in, it'll get jammed down here and it's hard to get to. This is why salt's gone. We can spray it right into here. It's a totally neutral pH. It'll disperse the salt, not allow the Na and the Cl to get together in your flight controls. Some of these are very hard to look into to see if we're starting to experience some corrosion. We see here on the outer end of the aileron, we're starting to get a little bit, which is just natural. Every plane's gonna have some of that, but these are places where it's really hard to get to, and this salt will actually ball up in places like in here and on your flight controls. And it's important when we're spraying it down with salt's gone, we're going to want to extend our flaps, get all the joints, all the rivets. Wherever you have washers coming together or any of these joints that are moving is a place where we're going to find a lot of corrosion. We can spray off with salt's gone and knock all the chlorides and salt out of there. A lot of corrosion we experience is where washers come together, places like that. And Bob, you were just telling me you had to replace one of your rivets up here.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even an inexpensive thing to change one rivet, was it?
Well, dissimilar metals, they expand and contract differently and respond differently to moisture. And I noticed I had a single rivet missing. Well, it's a fastener. And that alone cost me over $150 to replace one fastener because that's all that was missing. But it sure does help to do preventative maintenance instead of responsive maintenance when you can.
Right.
And I am very concerned with these fasteners and corrosion.
Right. Anywhere you have a washer or tightening, that's one of the plus.
It was $156, pow, just like that.
Anything on an airplane's not going to be cheap to fix, is it? Right.
Well, I know y'all do a lot of work with boats. They say boat stands for break out another 1,000. Well, for the airplane, it's break out another 5,000.
Right.
It's a wonderful experience, just like owning a boat too, and I know you own a boat.
Right.
And but the more preventative maintenance you can do, and that's all I do on this airplane, is try to do as much preventative maintenance as I can.
That's exactly what we're trying to do here with salt's gone. If we can be spraying our plane regularly, keeping all the salt and chlorides out of it, the more you use the product, basically you're just flooding the area with electrons where the Na and Cl can't get together. The more you use it, the better it works for you. But a consistent washing regime with salt's gone is really what we're talking about on this preventative maintenance. There's a lot of different theories about airplane washing. Some guys don't want any water on their plane whatsoever. The problem with that is you do get the salt down in these crevices and stuff, you have no way to really get that out. And that's what we're doing here with salt's gone. The major importance is we do not want a high pressure washing because we don't want to do anything that's going to take any paint off or harm your aircraft at all. So we want a very, very soft wash. We can do this in a couple of different ways. We can just get the salt's gone that goes on the end of your hose. And we just, in our last video with the Bonanza, we just went around and sprayed it off. We can use gallons that we sell. You can just refill those. Or this is my favorite delivery method. I have this on the dock of my house too for my boat, but it's a great way to do airplanes, especially if you have more than one aircraft or a fleet. You see me wearing this fob I forgot I had this on when we started. And what this does is the hose goes right up into this. And one of the things that in AOPA, the last article I read about corrosion, it was like frequent washings with some kind of solution to keep your plane clean from the salt is one of the most important things we can do. So what happens here, our hose comes right up in here, and it's a water-based product. We can adjust the dilution, which is very important. If you just come back from the Caribbean or something along those lines, you're right there on the coast of Miami, we can put a little more Saltskon in. We're usually 100 to 1, so that gallon of Saltskon is going to make about 100 gallons. So the way this works is we start off with just the water. Actually, we're just going to start off with a straight Saltskon today. I just turn the fob on. It'll immediately be delivering Saltskon to our hose. And then if I'm on the other side of the plane and I'm done with the Saltskon, I can just turn it off and it'll go straight to the water and I can just rinse it off. Just kind of saves a step. We can also sell Saltskon in the 5-gallon buckets. We sell totes, hundreds of gallons of Saltskon, some of our industrial contracts. So it's just a real nice, easy, effective delivery method. And let me show you how this works. Like I said, we don't want a really high pressure wash. We want a soft pressure because we're just really trying to deliver the Saltskon. We want a low foaming. We don't want a lot of foam in what we're doing, but we want enough foam to see that we're actually using the Saltskon. And then when we're spraying it off, it's kind of windy today. Then when we're spraying it off, we can tell we got the Saltskon. Part of what's in Saltskon is surfactant, which is just a soap in itself. So it is actually cleaning while we are delivering the other components that actually get the salt apart off of your plane. Like I said, we're trying to deliver the Saltskon. I was reading in the last AOPA circular about corrosion. They said to use the best products are water-based, no VOCs, biodegradable, a neutral pH, and this is all the things we have in Saltskon. There is soap in Saltskon, surfactant, which is going to clean the plane, but actual solution itself is actually chelating the salt, which breaks it down and actually comes off the plane. It just stops the Na and the Cl and the other salts from getting together. They use a lot of magnesium chloride on runways up north. It is actually worse than the stuff that we have in the air down here. It's really important, as you can see, to get up on the inside of the flaps here. This is all the flap areas. You bring them back up. If you have salt and contaminants on the inside, you're just going to draw it back up into the airplane. They're going to sit up in there and tend to be a lot more corrosive, especially where you have joints, washers coming together. These are things we have to worry about. It's really as simple as this. Spray it on, get up in the joints. Really important to get our brake systems, get our tires up in the wheel wells themselves. Really important to get up in there because that's where a lot of the contaminants get kicked up in, and then when we draw the gear up in, we're actually just trapping all of that up in the well itself. And one great thing about Saltskon is if you're using these semi-permanent oil inhibitors, like when you take the plane apart and you spray it, if you're putting that oil-based inhibitor on and you haven't used Saltskon or some other product to get rid of all the salt that's already there and the chlorides, you're basically just taking that oil and trapping those contaminants in there. So this is important to be using Saltskon. We don't emulsify any oil. It's not going to take any of that protection that you have off of there if you're using some of those products. It just basically will leave what you have for grease, oil, things of that nature to protect, and just take the chlorides and the salts off themselves. And Bob, we just want to thank you for letting us use your plane, man. It's a really pretty piece of machinery. I know you're happy using it. What do you think about what we did today?
Well, I'm going to give it a try. I'll use the product because I definitely want to protect my airplane. It looks really great after the wash down we got today.
And it's really easy to do. We just either use the spray bottles. It's really easy to spray it on, spray it off.
I like the key fob.
Yeah, the key fob's nice. I love that box. It makes it very easy to use on and off. A lot less expensive than asking them to wash your plane for you, that's for sure. And we're protecting it. And guys, if you need any information about where we are, look at saltskon.com. You can find everything you need for your marine, for your car and vehicle, trailer uses, and the aviation. You can contact us directly or go to the website. Thank you.